Chapter 1. You are listening at FameTV.info. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation Director Jiang, thank you for your generous investment in our company. As the company's director's secretary, I'd like to propose a toast to you. A graceful woman walked to him. She wore black stockings and bright red high heels, and she bent down beside Jiang Bei. Her deep cleavage and perky bum were stimulating the male hormones. The man whom she called Director Jiang also had a smile on his face as he lightly clinked glasses with her. "Ah." The woman suddenly exclaimed in a coquettish manner. It turned out that her handbag had slipped onto the ground. She hurriedly faced Jiang Bei and squatted down. Then, she picked up her handbag and slipped him a business card. She held on to Jiang Bei's thigh and stood up. She even used her finger to gently hook it. When she saw Jiang Bei silently keeping her business card, she smiled. "Director Jiang, come." The woman downed the red wine in her glass in one gulp. Some red liquid flowed down the corner of her mouth and onto her neck. She was a young seductress who knew how to stir troubles in the workplace. Jiang Bei smiled and toasted. This banquet was held for Jiang Bei. He was the focus of the event. As they toasted, countless women handed him their business cards and secretly requested for him to stay over. Jiang Bei, who was slightly tipsy, slowly stood up and took his leave. He walked to the door and made a phone call to someone. The women's eyes suddenly lit up and they all stopped moving. This man, who was only in his 40s but had a few billion in assets, was an absolute bachelor. Who wouldn't want to be with such a person? Although he had a wife and even a daughter, who would care if he had so much wealth? After all, his wife and daughter had been dead for 20 years. Jiang Bei walked out of the banquet hall and threw all the business cards in his pocket into the trash can. The handsome middle-aged man seemed to have suddenly aged by more than 10 years. The smile on his face completely disappeared, and his brows seemed to be locked in a frown. This difference in his expressions showed how good of an actor he was. Everyone knew that he was an eligible bachelor who had lost his wife and child, but who would know that his wife and child died because of him? Jiang Bei returned to his hotel room, filled the bathtub, and sat in it. It was late at night, and he fell into a deep sleep amid self-reproach, the swelling pain in his head and stomach caused Jiang Bei to gradually regain consciousness. "I thought I didn't drink much." Jiang Bei rubbed his temples, closed his eyes, and slowly sat up. Ever since that year, he had not drunk much. Other than during the social events that he had to attend, he did not drink a single drop of alcohol in his daily life, because 20 years ago, he was a scum who drank too much, gambled, and abused his family. His wife and daughter died because of him, and his family was ruined because of him. Since then, he had spent 20 years in regret. Every time he closed his eyes, he could not help but think about what happened that year. It was he who destroyed his family. It was his fault that his wife and daughter had left this world forever. How great would it be if he could relive his life again? As Jiang Bei thought of this, the corners of his mouth curled into a self-deprecating smile. He thought about his gentle and beautiful wife, his cute daughter. Their small family could have been happy. I end this life. I have let you all down. Mommy, Daddy seems to have woken up. A weak voice entered his ears. It was a young child, as if she had seen something that made her afraid. Even her voice was trembling. Every day, he would beat and scold his wife. He would go crazy after drinking too much. He would ask his wife for money and smash things. He would make a mess in the house. This made his young daughter afraid of him. In the eyes of his wife and daughter, he was not a human, but a devil. A devil that deserved to go to hell. And no matter how much charity he had done in the past 20 years, he could not redeem his own heart. He had heard such a voice and seen such a scene countless times in his dreams. Wan, be good. Mommy will protect you. We are not afraid of him. Mommy. Wan wants to protect you. I won't let Daddy bully you anymore. I am already grown up. The clear voices of the mother and daughter entered his ears and stimulated Jiang Bei. He slowly opened his eyes, but what he saw was not a hotel suite at all. On the dining table in front of him was a small plate of peanuts, half a portion of stewed fish, and half a bottle of low-quality white wine. He turned his head. The living room was simply decorated and there was no television on the television stand that he had smashed long ago. There was also a big wooden chair at the side, and a woman was sitting on it. There was a child in front of her. Jiang Bei's pupils contracted violently. That was his wife, Su Xinrong, and their daughter, Jiang Shaowan. The one who was trying her best to stand in front of Su Xinrong was his 3-year-old daughter, who appeared younger than her peers due to malnutrition. When she saw him turning around, she looked at him bravely with a bulging face. Her eyes were full of fear, but she did not take a step back. She wanted to use her small body to protect her mother. Wan. Jiang Bei opened his mouth. The strong smell of alcohol in his throat and the piercing pain in his head clashed with the illusory scene in front of him. He shook his head and tried to wake himself up. He didn't know if this was a dream or not. Even if it was a dream, he wanted to see his wife and daughter again and apologize to them. Wan, Xinrong. Jiang Bei slowly stood up. Because he was drunk just now, his body swayed, as if he could fall down at any time. That he staggered toward his wife and daughter. There were tears in Jiang Xiaowan's eyes. She was terrified. Even so, she still didn't retreat. She stretched her arms to protect her mother behind her. Jiang Bei walked up to his daughter and smiled. Actually, he wanted to smile a little better, but he could not hold back the tears in his eyes. In addition to his drunken and pale face, this made him look even more ferocious and terrifying. He slowly stretched out his hand, wanting to touch his daughter's head. However, Su Xinrong, who was beside him, had already stood up and protected her daughter behind her. Then, she suddenly pushed Jiang Bei. Jiang Bei, are you going to attack your daughter now? You could beat me to death. Don't touch my daughter. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Bam. Jiang Bei fell and the back of his head hit the floor. It was as if the pain made his head clearer. He struggled to get up, but when he looked sideways, he saw the calendar on the wall. It was clear and blinding. May 29, 2001. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.